Hello and welcome to the RevOps Show. We're excited to have you here today as Doug and Jess dive into a topic that's at the core of every successful business, the customer journey. Traditionally, we think of this as a neat and linear process that guides customers straight to their destination. But is that really how it works? Today, we're breaking down the myths and explore how we should think about the customer journey to make an impact on our customers. And with that, let's get into it.
Jess, my dog is going freaking nuts.
Oh man. No. Oh, I hear her. She's like so calm.
She's outside.
No. Oh man.
Jess, I just want you to know, I think you're doing a great job.
Okay, thanks.
Do you know what today is?
What's today?
It's National Compliment Day.
Oh wow.
See what I did? I gave you a compliment.
I did see that. I heard that. I heard it. Yep.
So don't say I've never said anything nice.
I don't know that I've ever said that, but I won't say that.
There are people who have said such things. Can you believe that?
Oh my gosh.
About me? Little old me?
No, I can't believe that. Hard to believe.
I'm just about the friendliest something
You are.
that you ever could meet.
You're the friendliest something or another. That's true.
You know, Jess, I had a realization, and it kind of blows me away. This is the first episode we're recording in the new year.
Yes, it is.
Have you been busy or something?
I think we've been busy or something.
Were you off for the month?
I have not been off. No, sir. I've been working.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. But you had a nice relaxing day today.
I've been in meetings all day long.
What do you mean? Isn't it first thing in the morning? Don't we record this first thing in the morning on Friday? Jess, this is the best thing for you. You did this just because you wanted to end your week on a high note, didn't you?
100%. Had nothing to do with the crazy schedule this week at all.
We are recording at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, 3:30 Central on Friday.
On Friday.
So I had
you know what?
And you giving me nothing to prep with. No questions, no preview, no anything.
This is my gift to everyone in 2025. You're all welcome.
So we have no idea if this episode will even be cogent.
Will be what?
Cogent.
Oh, cogent. Yeah.
That's the right word, isn't it?
I think so. Coherent? No.
It may or may not be coherent. But cogent means it connects. It's complete, right? It has a whole to it. A whole with a W, not without a W. Isn't that weird that the difference between whole and whole is a W? I don't think I ever thought about that before.
Oh my gosh. It is end of the day Friday. It sure is.
But like, wouldn't you think it would be an O? It would be the difference between whole and whole.
Oh my God.
Right? One is full, complete.
Yes.
And the other is empty, is missing.
It's all accurate. Everything you're saying is accurate. Yeah, 100%.
It's the W that makes the difference.
It is the W that makes the difference. Wow.
So that could be a new dad joke. What's the difference between complete and empty? W.
I don't think that works. I don't think that joke works.
But like once you understand it, it works, right?
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
I've never made that connection before. That is, see, Jess?
I'm glad I could bring us here on a Friday afternoon you could make that new connection.
You know, the thing that I value above everything else is learning. Every day I try to learn something new.
I know.
I was worried today that might not happen, but it did. You're
welcome.
This episode, thanks to, I don't think we would have come to this conclusion if we were recording this in the morning.
I am 100% confident that we wouldn't have come to this conclusion if we recorded it in the morning. I guarantee you.
Because we were talking about cogent.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I do think that today's episode is, if you can stay on point, Jess.
If I can maintain focus. Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, the new year's off to a really interesting start. I mean, I don't know when you're listening to it, so hopefully when you're listening to this, what I'm saying sounds foolish we saw a lot of things coming back in Q4 and Q1 kind of feeling a little bit of that reticence again. It's been a heavy, what was it? I think we were 10 days in when I saw, when I shared the cartoon with you. It's been a tough year.
It's been a hell of a year. Yeah.
It's January. Like it's January 10th. Yeah, it's interesting. So, I think that, the proverbial macroeconomic environment is I was hoping we were done with that phrase for a while. Headwinds. And so I think that 2025 is going to be a year with lots of opportunity, but mixed with a lot of disruption and chaos. I think that gosh, that kind of describes 2024, doesn't it?
I was going to say, I feel like we're having deja vu all over again. Like that was 2024, that's for sure.
And what is anyway? It doesn't matter. We've already made one discovery today. Whole W.
We
I'm
have.
going to remember that one forever. This will be mark this on
great
on January 24th. What are we talking about today, Jess?
Today we're going to talk about the customer journey and how to optimize for the full customer journey. That's what we're going to talk about.
The word customer journey, which by the way makes no sense because it's two words.
When I heard the term customer journey,
much better. What does that mean when you hear customer journey? Like what does that bring to mind for you?
For me, it's the path that someone takes to become a customer. So what's the story of how they become a customer? That's the first thing that pops in my head.
And what's that story look like? Do you like how do you think of that story? Do you think of it as I forgot, I'm sorry, I do have to switch back. I needed to get
okay.
I've waited all day to ask you this.
I can't wait.
Was Wicked properly treated?
Are you talking about by the Oscars?
Yes.
Oh, I think so.
10 nominations.
Best Picture, Ariana Grande got her due. I mean, she's not going to win, but she got a nomination. So
she got nominated for Best Actress, right?
Best Supporting, Cynthia Erivo got nominated for Best Actress, which is an argument could be made. They're pretty much in equal parts of the movie, but we don't need to.
The second part don't they kind of flip roles? Isn't like I forget which played which. Like
no, so Cynthia Erivo plays the witch. Ariana Grande plays Glinda, the good witch. Cynthia Erivo plays
more of a focus in the second half.
No, actually, the Wicked Witch is more of a focus in the second half.
Okay, someone I was watching the Today Show this morning, and Carson Daly said, "Wouldn't it be interesting if next year they were nominated?"
Well, this is all campaigns. So Ariana Grande campaigned for supporting actress. Cynthia Erivo campaigned for Best Actress. It's so they wouldn't compete with one another.
So next year, do you think they'll flip?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so? All right, there's your Oscar prognostication.
Yes. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the Oscars. So customer journey, what does that look like? Is that what?
Yes, that's what I was asked. You know what? See, what made me think about it? Like, is it a straight line? Is it like a movie script? Is it defying gravity?
Is it like the Yellow Brick Road? It's like the Yellow Brick Road, Doug.
Are you following the Yellow Brick Road? You know what? I think that's how most people think about the customer journey.
Actually, this wasn't planned, as you alluded to, but yeah, that is how most people think about it. I mean,
because Lord knows the sales organization has some crazy person behind a curtain just pulling levers.
That's you. You are a wizard. Yeah, I mean, I it's hard to kind of articulate how I think about it, but I think about it as, they happen upon us. Sales reaches out and converts them to a sales qualified lead, and then we move into discussion, send them a proposal, and boom, they're a customer. Like that's how it happens, right?
And then the journey's over.
Yeah. I mean, no, but yes, that's how most people think about it.
Right. I think most people think about it's the journey to being a customer. It's the yellow brick road to customer. I think the first thing, so it's the yellow brick road to Oz.
And then when you get to Oz, when you get to the wizard, you're a customer.
I was just talking to somebody about this. So what's the role of marketing once somebody becomes a customer? And I said, well, your customer, because I was talking to this person about there's 3 buckets that revenue comes from. One is new business from new customers. And I think that's what we tend to think of as the customer journey, which is funny because that's more the prospect journey than it is the customer journey.
Oh, interesting. I
know.
Oh, yeah. I've never thought about it as the prospect journey, but that's
what it is, right?
That is what it is. Yeah.
Right. Like the customer journey is really the prospect journey, right? So there's new business, new customer, new business, existing customer, existing business, existing customer.
Right.
Those are the three buckets.
Yeah.
And if you take a look, most companies, not all, but a majority of companies generate more revenue in a year. Existing business, existing customers, their top bucket. New business, existing customers, their second bucket. And new business, new customers, their third bucket. Now, you probably have some that flip. And there are businesses out there that their business, they generate more revenue from new business, new customers, but they're not a high, that's not a super high percentage, right? But anyway, well then, what's the role of marketing if you're getting most of your business? Let's say you're getting 80% of your revenue, existing business, existing customers. And I pointed out, I said, well, your existing business, existing customer, existing business, existing customer to you is new business, new customer, or new business, existing customer to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the truth.
And so I think the first thing that we really have to think about, and I think that RevOps really needs to take the lead in, is making sure that the customer journey is not thought about the journey to being a customer, but the journey through being a customer. Who's exceptionally good at that? Disney.
Oh, yeah.
You know how I used to describe Disney's marketing strategy?
How?
From the womb to the tomb.
To the tomb. Yeah. No, they are. I mean,
right. They think about what is it. And by the way, when you stop being a customer for this, you start being a customer for that.
Well, so I'm like, I think I have a perfect example of this, I think. So I'm going on a cruise in March, Disney cruise.
Oh, wait, I need a
shocking turn.
Because we're going to be talking about that with greater frequency. I need to get the Love Boat theme onto my soundboard.
You do.
Sing it for you for the time being.
But one thing I was doing research on is one thing they do on the cruise is while you're there, if you put $250 down to your next cruise, I don't even think you have to pick when it is. You get 10% off on that. But you have to do it while you're on the ship before you leave the ship.
Yep. Yeah, we when I was on Celebrity's doing the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Put money down. You don't even have to choose. I think what they were saying is as long as you take it in the next 2 years.
I think it's the same. So it's the same promotion. Pretty much it's the same promotion.
Well, what Disney does exceptionally well is they sell their next thing, making that part of the experience. So you're going to be on the cruise and you're going to get sold all kinds of things, but you're not even going to necessarily know that you're being sold because they make it part of the experience. That's how. And, Disney is a very operational company. I mean, they operationalize everything. They lead. I mean, one of the things that makes I used to have a lot of friends. My sister worked at Disney, and being in the travel industry, I used to know a lot of people that worked at Disney or worked with Disney. And they share with me. They said one of the things that makes Disney so great to be a customer of is what makes it so hard and sometimes painful to be an employee, which is they're all about every experience, every touch point fits is the same, et cetera. There's not, minimizing variance, et cetera. Story for another day. But what Disney does is they look through it from, at the beginning, you became a lifetime customer of Disney before you had the spending power. Now you had influence, right? They understood that you had influence.
Yeah, sure.
So, how can you be more like Disney when you think about that from a customer journey standpoint? And I think one of the things that has happened, and we've talked about it a little bit in other episodes, is, and this is where I think that the economic environment, why I think this is a really timely topic, is between the combination of technology and the tightness of the market, there's an obsession with high intent.
So tell me more. Why do you think there's such an obsession?
So, way back when, before we started doing the inbound marketing thing, we were focused on sales. And we noticed, so I oftentimes tell the story. It's part of the iterations of Imagine Now Lift. we started seeing that that things that used to be true were no longer as true. That by the time an opportunity got to a salesperson, that salesperson was already in a corner. They had, they were either already in a position of weakness that was really hard to overcome, or on occasion, the predisposition to buy was already so high that you almost had to screw up the sale to lose it, which is why, we would often get, our problem isn't closing business. You put us in front of a customer, we win that business, right? And one of the things that I realized was that this big change that occurred, ushered in, popularized by HubSpot, others as well, but HubSpot was definitely the evangelists that brought us into the world. But as I took a step back, and what I noticed was that the difficulty, and this has always been true to a degree, but if you define, like if you talk to a lead, if you ask a salesperson what's a lead look like, this is why BANT was considered at one time sales qualification criteria: budget, authority, need, and timing. And the problem that I've always said about BANT, if they have the budget, the right person is talking to you, they have a defined need, and there's a defined timeline, you're not selling.
Right. They've already decided. Yeah.
Right. You maybe are presenting. Right. What BANT is, you're order qualified. They're ready to buy something.
Right.
Something is from not being ready to buy something to being ready to buy something. Right. And so sales would go through, and our definition of lead was a really narrow definition. And what companies like HubSpot and others had done is they changed their definition of lead, and it went really broad. Right. They started looking at it. And that's where Serious Decisions with their demand waterfall, the idea of lead, marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead, opportunity, et cetera, came in. And then we became obsessed with life cycles. And then all of a sudden we realized, wait a second, life isn't, it's like so much of what, and then, then top of funnel. I mean, I'm going to call the period between 2013 and 2021 the top of funnel era, right? People started paying attention. Wait, my database needs to get bigger. And we started thinking about that. Now, the challenge was a lot of people started, their databases started filling up, but it didn't translate to scale. Sales costs continued to go up.
Right.
Databases were growing at a much greater rate than the customer bases were growing. Net revenue retention became this key metric, which, by the way, led to this reverse gravity effect that our revenue was growing at a faster rate than our customer base, and we were calling that efficiency. Right. And maybe it is efficiency, but it's efficiency at the cost of resilience.
Right.
Right. And so what's happened, and then 2020 to 2022 came in, and I think, kicked off by the pandemic, which led to this expectation of, I remember we started doing stuff on, almost like, how do you compete in a depression environment? Because the expectation was, okay, businesses, like the machine is going to stop working for a while. It's just going to, right. And the thing that was interesting, that was true if you were a restaurant. But for B2B, the opposite was true. I mean, you had, PPP come in, and all of a sudden, people got paid to not lay anybody off when there wasn't a need to lay anybody off. So you almost like, hey, we're going to pay your payroll for you up to. But, all those things, led to, money, zero interest rate environment, your favorite thing to talk about. We saw this explosion of business, demand shot up. Companies started thinking trees were going to grow to the sky. Then we're in this hazy period for the last 3 years, and the myopia comes back in, and we've gone from thinking about the market. And again, I don't think we ever really thought about the market holistically, which is interesting because there's no W in holistically. See how I brought that full circle?
I do.
Right. And so we've never really, it's the exception company that has looked at and thought about and thinks about the customer journey as a as a whole picture. And I think that efficiency and resilience and effectiveness has been the expense, has been the cost. And so we're obsessed with high intent. Back into this idea of looking for, well, let's find the people that are looking for this.
So you talked about the obsession with high intent. You also brought up we get obsessed with life cycle stages. So we get obsessed with MQL, SQL. How do we go past that? How do you kind of open up those blinders?
I think we implement a new rule.
No more MQLs.
No more abbreviations. I think the problem is we get and so much of this is driven by technology and the way the technology gets set up and implemented. We've become obsessed with measurement. There's this move and mass element to efficiency. Like, here's the problem: building connection isn't efficient. Building community isn't efficient, but it does create a moat and it does create lift. And so I think that we have to remember that the model, all the serious decisions demand waterfall was a model to take a look at your new business, new logo, your new business, new customer, process and efficiency. And it was built primarily, it was implemented and utilized primarily through SaaS, which was basically, okay, you become a customer. And by the way, single line product SaaS. Like, if you look at where the life cycle definitions came to be, one of the fundamental problems with marketing automation and inbound marketing when it got invented was no one paid any attention to the idea that there was a company that was involved. It was all persona. Right. One of the things that supposedly made account-based marketing this new thing was that it paid attention to the account. Are we marketing to accounts? Right. Now, again, this is something that sales has known forever. Sales has been selling to accounts, but that's part of where marketing and sales never connected. And then we started establishing these waterfall metrics, and we started optimizing. The goal became optimizing the conversion rate, right? And by the way, one of the reasons for that is if you take a look at the technologies that made these calculations, one of the things that we talked about for years was the difficulty is, like, if you take a look at a typical marketing automation piece of software, and I would say if you take a look at the typical CRM piece of software, what you're going to find is something that overweights the noise of new versus the actions or activity of what's old. So generating a new lead, I mean, what we call it lead generation, right? The term that we coined was lead activation. I'd much rather measure lead activation than lead generation, because activation, someone who's in my database, right? So what's happened, like what we need to do is, I mean, we've got to acknowledge it. We've got to understand it. We've got to begin to document it, right? Disney doesn't leave this stuff to chance. Disney doesn't go, oh, well, people will find us, right? They're like, when you're in this segment of the journey, what is the impression? What, in essence, what is the sale being made? Right. We're focused, like, we've got to get out of this sales mentality into, I mean, I don't want to call it an enablement mentality. You know what? We've got to get out of a sales enablement mindset and get into a buyer enablement mindset.
So I think the other piece, I agree with what you're saying about sales enablement versus buyer enablement. I think the other piece of this that you haven't really hit on is, so we have our customer, they go to your customer success team, and we're not talking with marketing. We're not talking about buyer enablement in that phase, and how do we nurture and how do we identify, like, how does your success team help identify somebody who's a viable upsell opportunity, an expand opportunity? We kind of forget about them once they become customer from a sales side.
Well, we did a whole episode on customer success, and I think that, part of the difficulty is that the customer success team is really the customer retention team. And so it's not about success.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't mean any offense. Like, I'm sure some people, I mean, there are some very, very good people that are in customer success roles, but are you really, I mean, I was talking to a HubSpot sales rep a while ago, and I said, your job is to provide a quality solution. Your job is not, does the company utilize it so that they get the quality that they're seeking? I said, that's my job.
Right.
That's what a service provider does. That's what implementation is about. And that's where you've got to decide, what are you selling solutions? Or are you selling outcomes? And I think what's happening is we're promising outcomes and we're selling solutions. Yeah. Right. So I think that, there's an underlying, like, what you can't get, like, I could sit here and say, to be a customer success team and to really understand and identify and do this, these are the things that you need to do. I mean, you have one issue that says, we might be going somewhere that we didn't plan on going. You have one issue that the customer, so I buy, I guess it's that time of year, or maybe our renewals coming up, because I'm getting crushed in customer. Well, you know what, my favorite, we have a subscription to iStock Photo, Getty Images Photo.
Yeah.
And our renewal is coming up. And I was getting these emails from the customer success manager that our renewal is coming up, and they would love to be able to talk to me about what is our 2025 strategy for this and this. I mean, it was just like the ultimate customer. And I'm like, you know what? The last thing in the world I'm looking for from iStock Photos is a strategic conversation about my growth plan for 2025. You know what I want? I want good stock images when I need them, when at the last second I'm like, I haven't finished my webinar deck. I want to be able to go there and find the image that communicates what I'm trying to communicate and makes me look creative. Right. I don't want anything else. And you know what? I don't want to talk to anybody. So there's that. There are, I mean, we've got clients that they're like, hey, HubSpot's my CRM. They're not my strategic advisor.
Yeah.
There are some people that go, oh, you know what, HubSpot, they could provide advice and they could advise me. That's great. So, I mean, the first question is, are you selling what your customer bought?
Yeah.
Second question is, and this is where I think you get into the trouble, the economics. Like, if you're a SaaS provider, the economics of your business don't support you providing the experience to really say, we're gonna put our mouth, we're gonna put our butt where your success is.
Yeah.
Right. That's where I think partner programs have been just tremendously underutilized. Tremendously. Like here's the fundamental problem with partner programs, especially in the SaaS space. I've been thinking about this for a while. It's been bothering me.
We are going places that I did not know we were going to go to today. Go ahead.
You know what partner programs have become?
What?
They become peddler programs.
Meaning we're here to peddle the wares.
Partner.
Yeah.
Where tech partnerships came from was the ability to serve, was the fact that, we have, you're a tech company. You make a moderate amount of money to a small amount of money off of a large install base. We're a services company. We make large amounts of money off of smaller install base. You're designed to provide something that supports many different situations. We're designed to support this unique situation. That was that translation and that ability to make it work, make it last. And you know what? There's a side benefit that we're going to generate some business from you. It used to be, and I know this is not where we were going to go, but it used to be that, like, as a customer, like, it used to be like, if you were a partner for XYZ partner, I would view that as valuable. I got to tell you right now, my guard goes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because guess what? Like, what if we were to say something not positive? I said something that wasn't even negative. I commented on the fact that HubSpot's new pricing was a price increase. And I got asked, why am I being so negative? I'm like, huh? I thought I was just informing the market. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
It used to be that partners held each other to account. And what does this have to do with Journey? Well, again, it's coming into this, hey, if I partner with ABC company, I can, I get emails from providers where their email address is abcpartner.com. something along those lines, to make it look like that they're actually part of the company that they're, quote unquote, a partner of. And that again is, well, you know what? You're not actually looking for what originates the opportunity for me to buy, which is what's the problem.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to say, sell the problem, but ask yourself, like, if you're listening to this podcast, and I hope you are, I hope you got through my rant on partner programs. Can you articulate the problem that your customer has that makes your solution the right solution? And how is the problem from one customer segment different from another problem from another customer segment? Right. And I can tell you, because I've had the conversations over the last 2 years with hundreds of companies. Right. And I'm going to tell you 5 to maybe 10% are even close to being able to articulate the problem. They're struggling articulating their solution. And that's where we view the customer journey, not we, but too much of the world is viewing the customer journey and through the customer journey as the solution. Right. You hear it in the conversations with, oh, we can solve that. Well, wait a second. We haven't even articulated the problem yet. We haven't even come to understand what is the problem. Right. We all jump on board and we say, oh yeah, the business process needs to drive the technology. But here we are jumping in to sell the technology in front of the business process.
Yep. Happened to me last week.
Yep. Right. And so what do we have to do? Like the journey begins by educating the problem. There's a concept that I call problem blindness. And that's the thing that, like, if you want to take a look at your market and what is the number one, you've got 2 poles, you got 2 headwinds to your growth right now. One is your customers are unaware of the problem that they have, what the real problem is. And by the time they become aware of it, it's so acute, all they really understand is the symptom.
Yep.
And so your high margin offering designed to solve the problem, right, isn't fully understood because I choose Advil over wellness, right? That's number one. Number two, and I talked about this on the webinar that we did earlier this week, right? The risk of change, the perceived risk of change is what's holding people back from moving forward. I've never seen a market that has as much agreement that they need to change, that they need to do something, they need to do it differently. And they're stuck on taking action. Why are they stuck on taking action? Because they're afraid that the action that they take today is going to look foolish 6 months from now. And here's the thing. I'm going to build that credibility. I'm going to build the trust over a period of time.
Yep.
And if all I'm looking at is how many leads am I generating, what's the conversion over the next 6 to 8 months? I mean, what's our sales cycle time? Our sales cycle time right now is running about 100 days. Bullshit. Our sales cycle time is not 100 days. Or let me put it this way. Maybe our sales cycle time is 100 days. The buying cycle is not 100 days.
Yeah.
No one woke up today and 100 days later is spending $100,000 or $200,000 on something. The buying cycle began long before the awareness even came in. Even if you're not gonna address it, like, even if you're not going to put resources towards it, you've got to understand it because it's happening. The term that's come in is pre-sales, which means pre-customer. Right. Well, I'm like, what you really need to pay attention to is what's the pre-sales. So the buying cycle begins long before the sales cycle does.
Right.
What are you doing? I mean, I got to tell you, I'm getting old, Jess, because I'm seeing history repeat itself. I'm remembering back in 2005, 2006, 2007, I did, I think it was 115 presentations to Vistage groups on this topic. And one of the key things was understanding the buying cycle versus the sales cycle, what are you, right? And then we started getting it. Content started becoming a thing. Now, all of a sudden, it's back to we're tightening up. And I think revenue operations has the opportunity to be the mappers of, help people understand the terrain better, broaden the perspective, and bring nuance and complexity. Like the problem with the life cycle definition, the problem with the serious waterfall, all that is they're designed, like they work well for a part of your process, but when you apply them to be the landscape, the whole, you run into a problem. What is your market? Who in your market is engaged with you? Of those that are engaged with you, who have the right people engaged with you? How many people? What are they engaged about? What's that digital body language? How can we be relevant? I mean, I realize that we've got a lot of work to do. We being everyone in this list, we got a lot of work to take care of 2025 and 2026, right? But if you don't want 2027 to be even harder, you've got to start being relevant to your customer base and to your prospect base before there's a need. And by the way, you can't even rely on the things that you used to be able to rely on to get that intent. I mean, the SEO doesn't work like it used to.
Yeah, you said a lot of words, Doug. Going to try to unpack them. So one piece I want to go back to, and this resonated with me because when we got really focused on this, I think it's some of what helped us expand customers, retain customers as well. So you talked a little bit when you were talking about partners and what I perceived as staying in your lane. Is that something you're seeing folks do where they are kind of going outside of whatever they initially sold or selling something that doesn't necessarily fit to an existing customer to try to expand that? Or
I don't think I'm saying that. I think this obsession has been, we've gotten to this obsession to high intent because we become overly obsessed with metrics that we're taking. I mean, I've said this before. If you look at sales cycle time as an important metric, then, and so your natural goal is, I want to shorten my sales cycle time. And my joke has always been, if you really want to shorten your sales cycle time, just wait until people are about to write a check and ask them if they want to buy. You'll have a very short sales cycle.
Right.
Right. And by the way, if you're measuring sales cycle time and you're talking about our sales cycle time is this, as a salesperson, if I meet you just today and it's like, okay, this is not something that's going to make sense for you over the next 12 to 18 months, why in the world would I put you in my pipeline? My manager's going to come to me and go, my sales cycle time is getting long.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So what we need balanced scorecards, right? We're not scoring early journey. Why are we high intent based? Because it's easier to measure, right? It's fast. It's not necessarily velocity, right? It's not getting where we want to go any better, but it is fast. And I'll tell you, it can make for quick revenue. It puts pressure on your margins, but I'll tell you, quick revenue feels good. And when you're getting revenue and tight margins, it's really hard for you to take a long view. Even though what you're doing, I mean, it's the problem with post intent is it's really addictive. I mean, I almost wanted to stay away from it because, like, the analogy gets really bizarre because it's still accurate, but it's really addictive. You get weaker, and it's more addictive, and so now you need it more. And so what are we doing? Like, what we've got to do is get back to carving out that percentages of resource towards early stages. And one of the opportunities is our messaging and positioning. Market the problem, sell the problem. That's going to help you in the short term and the long term. Put in the metrics. Give me something to measure and judge. Start showing. Like, I was talking to somebody about the podcast episode that we did years ago, not on RevOps show, but back on Black Line. And it was Steve Paw who talked about the fact that, in their market, everyone signed basically was a 5-year contract, and everybody had a contract because, like, there's not a lot of new business, like this is something that needs to be solved, it's required, et cetera. And they said, so we looked at it, like there are two ways we could look at it. Like the market's already all taken up, there is no new market, or we could look at it as a really predictable market. Every month, 1/60th of our market, so, almost 2% of our market needs to turn over. Every month, 2% of our market turns over. But they also realized that if the conversation that they had started, like if the first real conversation they had came, definitely 6 months or less, but in that 6 to 9 month or less period, the likelihood that they would win the business was significantly lower. If they could get the conversation, the first qualifying conversation, to start 12 months before that contract renewal, 3 times the likelihood that they'd win the business. Well, you can begin to measure that before you've started allocating those resources. And I'll tell you this, if you don't measure it, then the only thing that's going to show up is high intent. And we're going to be right back to the image that I remember using. I checked. I think the first time I used it was 2005, and it was pigeons in Central Park all running after a piece of bread. Right? That's where, honestly, the salespeople that are listening, how many of you are feeling like that right now? Customer pops their head up. Actually, let me change that. Customers. How many of you feel that way? You pop your head up and say, I need something. All of a sudden, there's, 47 pigeons coming saying, here.
Yeah.
Can I take a peck from you?
So I have a couple of key thoughts. Was there anything else that we didn't cover you wanted to cover?
I don't know, Jess, you didn't give me any brief, so I had no time to.
Just chaos.
I think that there's 2 motions that need to be mastered, right? And we're back to dropping the first motion, because sales development is not a development motion. It's a late stage sales motion, and it's becoming even more so. There's 2 motions. There's the development motion and there's the sales motion. And the development motion is the foundation. If we don't have a strong development motion, we're working behind the 8 ball on a sales motion. What's interesting is, and by the way, this is going to become even bigger, right? This is going to become existential over the next 3 to 5 years, because that's when, like, by the time I've decided that I want something, it's going to be an AI algorithm that tells me what my solution should be.
Yep.
Right. What an AI algorithm is still a long, long way from doing is telling me what I should be thinking about. That's development. That's developing the market, right? That's the open space. And that's where high margins come from. That's where predictability comes from. That's where lift comes from.
So I agree with that development versus sales motion. I also really liked, it's the customer journey, not the prospect journey. I think we say customer journey, but we're talking about prospect journey. Be relevant to your prospect base and customer base, by the way. Sell the problem.
To me, the customer journey is the prospect journey and the customer journey.
Okay.
The customer journey begins at the first opportunity that someone in your market segment could become aware of you.
Yep.
By the way, not when they become aware of you. It starts before that. The first opportunity. It's like if your message is out somewhere and I come across it and don't notice it, right? That's when it started, right? And by the way, that actually has more influence than we care to admit in terms of the types of actions that we're going to take.
Yep. Be relevant to your prospect base and your customer base. Sell the problem. And that feeds into really understanding the full customer journey. It's important so you know what to measure and how to measure it the right way. To your point, our measurement has us putting on those blinders. And then I liked what you said about do not overweight the new. I think biggest thing I see when we first start working with sales orgs is there is definitely that weight there on new customer.
20 years ago, I was at a training session and they said, you can be you're either part of your system or someone else's. And he said, another way of saying that is you're either the windshield or you're the bug.
Oh, interesting.
Right. There's 3 systems. There's your system. There's there's 4 systems. There's your system, their system, someone else's system, or no system. So the their system is the customer system. Someone else's system is the competitor system. Competing in their system, someone else's system, or no system that's hard, expensive, and unpredictable. We are not competing in our system, and that's the opportunity that we have for improvement. And that's all I have to say about that, Jess.
And that's all I have to say about that.
And I promise you, if you embrace the entire journey, you'll be saying no to shitty RevOps.
Until next time.
That's a wrap on this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the RevOps Show. We would not be here without our amazing listeners. Do us a favor, if you haven't already, follow us on Apple or Spotify, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see Doug and Jess's reactions live. And hey, share the episode with your friends and colleagues. They and us will thank you for it. One thing that stuck out with me outside of realizing for the first time with Doug that W is the difference between whole and whole is how often we think about the customer journey as the yellow brick road. It's so much more layered and dynamic than that. And truthfully, that metaphor is going to stick in my brain for the rest of my life. That's for sure. Tune in next week for another episode packed with strategies and insights to help you and your business level up. But until then, just say no to shitty RevOps.